Smarter.
Still the same takes, though. Still the exact same takes.
Yeah, you'll be here, which is good. But when Brad gets here, I'm in a little bit of trouble. I have a hard
Well, yeah,
enough
I mean,
time holding him off.
at that point, it's going to be two belligerent individuals ranting about goaltenders. You might as well just cancel the whole thing.
That's why we have Evan, who only speaks when it's absolutely necessary, and it really is a nice temper. I'm not actually a good temper at all. All I'm good for is the shut up, Brad. So truly, Evan and Max are the two unsung heroes of the Red Wings fandom.
Basically, I mean, they're the two people that can keep the loud mouths in check. But as of now, we'll just see how well you can do 1-on-2 here.
All right, guys. Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast live stream of the NHL Draft Lottery 2021. We'll be watching along, reacting with all of you. I'm Ryan Hanna, one of the hosts of the Winged Wheel Podcast. And with me, very last second, graciously, special guest Prashant Iyer from formerly Wings for Breakfast, The Athletic Detroit, and all-around good friend and good guy. Prashant, again, thank you.
Appreciate you for extending the invite. I mean, I was going to crash the chat anyway, so it was going to be here either way.
Yeah, it's a good time whenever you're there in the chat. I remember a couple of years ago, actually, when you were giving like live odds updates, and was it the McDavid draft, or was it?
I think it was actually the year where it leaked. It was like 3 years ago, maybe the year where all the results leaked in that kind of screenshot on NBCSN. And then we slowly started to all realize that, oh my God, the order is going exactly as that leaked screenshot. And that's what I gave up because I was so annoyed in that situation. Cause I think that's the year the Wings dropped from like 4 to 6 or something like that. But yeah, I think it was that year, like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. So the draft lottery history for the Red Wings: 7th to 9th in 2017, 5th to 6th in 2018, 4th to 6th in 2019, and 1st to 4th last year. So that is a -8, a -8 differential over 4 years.
I mean, what can you say? I think I tried to summarize my feelings on it a couple of days ago by just tweeting out the Leafs are to the playoffs as the Red Wings are to the draft lottery, just incapable of advancing here.
Oh man, that was the most accurate thing, because with the Leafs, you just know, you're like, it does not matter how much they have and how probable it is they move on. You just know it's not going to happen. And with the Wings last year, exact same vibes.
Exactly. I mean, literally, they're gifted a division that just is very weak, and they have all of the superstar talent, and they're playing an opponent that they dominated, and they have 3 chances to close them out, and they can't even do it. So it just feels the same way when you're talking about the Red Wings in the draft lottery.
I have a lot of people asking questions. Where's Brad? Brad, believe it or not, nearly cut his whole finger off at work, and so he is getting stitched up. I tried to pay the doctor off to make it as painful as possible, but apparently they did indeed numb him. Evan has a golf tournament, and usually I would begrudge him for that, but the NHL has a habit of not announcing the times or dates of their events until very last minute. So as a fun giveaway, actually, for everyone who's here, Evan's golfing 9 today. Guess his score in the chat, and if you are one of the first 2 people to get it right, I'll send you a shirt. I'll go look back in the chat and I'll send you a shirt, a Winged Wheel Podcast t-shirt. Our giveaways are never related to like anything hockey. It's always, when's Evan gonna show up? What's his golf score? He's on brand, at least.
I mean, hey, it'll be I'm be very curious to see how close people get on the scores as they're all rolling in right now. I think only the in-tune listeners will sort of know how good Evan is or how bad Evan is. I won't give anything away there, so I'm curious to see here.
There's some Ryan level scores. Someone I think guessed 90, and I actually shot a 90 on 9 once. It was bad.
I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I'd probably shoot at least that. I think the last time I played golf, I was 6 or 7, maybe.
Isn't there amazing golf where you are too?
Oh, there absolutely is. I mean, but the last time I think I played was at the Grosse Ile Country Club in Michigan there. So that's probably the last time I participated in a tournament or even picked up a golf club. It's really a treat to watch me at some of these like driving ranges just absolutely send the club farther than the ball.
I feel like Max is not bad either, so we should get out there one day. Like one of us pairs with Max and the other pairs with Evan and see who wins. Almost until
Yeah, I mean, honestly, who can drag the other one down further?
yeah. Okay, the Red Wings draft lottery. Their possible positions today, as you'll see on the screen, are first and second, and then it goes down to sixth, which is their actual where they fall in the actual draft lottery odds order, and then seventh and eighth, with seventh being the most likely pick at 42.6. And actually, for the 25 minutes leading up to the launch of the draft lottery, Prashant is just going to tell you all the virtues of drafting Jesper Wallstedt at seventh overall.
I will absolutely not do that, as I think Brad did a very nice job on y'all's last episode, and therefore I don't need to say that anymore. It's already out there. It's been done.
That vote of confidence that you just put out there for Brad will not be forgotten. I won't begrudge you for it today because you're doing us a big favor, but sleep with one eye open, my friend.
Look, man, I'm just saying I have to say something nice to Brad if he's going to let me steal a spot here for the night.
Yeah, that's fair. In terms of the Red Wings drafting first or second, and this isn't the only time we'll have this conversation tonight, does anyone jump out to you as the obvious first or second overall pick? Like, do you have a bona fide top two that you're kind of flipping around in there, or is it wide open all the way through the top for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the fascinating part is I think over the last maybe 6 or 7 months, there's been this huge drive to a consensus of Owen Power as number one for a lot of people. I mean, from my perspective, I think he's a very solid defenseman and a really good hockey player, but I don't actually see enough to call him a clear-cut one in the way that I think a lot of people have sort of made him a consensus number one. I honestly think there's probably a group of 6 or 7 people that you could put in a tier for number one, and those are guys like Owen Power, Matty Beniers, William Eklund, I think is a heck of a hockey player and really arguably the most skilled hockey player in this draft. I think a lot of people have sort of moved away from him because of him probably not being a center at the next level. And then, Dylan Genther had a heck of a start, in the WHL. I mean, basically a 2-point per game player. You've got some of the other defensemen like Brant Clark, who I think a lot of people sort of forget about because he played over in Slovakia, had a really nice U18 tournament. Simon Edvinsson, looks good. So there's a handful of different people I think that are all in that conversation for 6. And I don't necessarily have a clear-cut number one based on that. I think there's a lot of people you should be talking about.
Yeah. Something that's coming up for me a lot is the concept of best player available. With the combination of the Red Wings having had so many wingers come through, especially in the draft, having Bertuzzi still there and Vrana's there now, that's a very strong part of their system. And there's a very clear need for 2 positions, excluding goalie, and that's center and the left side of the defensive pipeline. In a year like this, where there isn't an apparent like Lafreniere, Hughes, or even Byfield level player, do you shy away from best player available when you consider guys who they're better at wing and maybe not at center, so you move them down your list? Is this the year where you finally break away from best player available, if that was your philosophy?
I think potentially it makes a little bit more sense, at least this year, because the trade-off between maybe the next guy on your list based on need versus who may arguably be the best player, that may actually not be as big of a difference as in some previous years. Like let's say for last year, if you wanted to take the best defenseman in the draft, which was Jamie Drysdale or Jake Sanderson, it would be really hard to pass on the guys that went in the top 4 picks to do that. And so that's where there's a huge trade-off if you're making that. And even really guys like Marco Rossi and Cole Perfetti getting passed on for Jake Sanderson and Jamie Drysdale, that may be a mistake in hindsight. We won't know really for a little while. But I think this year, the trade-off is not as great. So potentially you could break away and say, you know what, let me go after the best defenseman, the best goaltender, the best, the best forward here and see if that's kind of going to fit your needs. I think if you're the Red Wings, though, they really need everything.
Yeah. I see some messages in the chat that my mic was coming in a little bit quieter than Prashant's. If I have fixed that, let me know. If not, keep yelling at me. I see a few people who know me who are screaming at me in there.
I think just about everything in the chat is just going to be, hey Ryan, fix your mic, because people have had enough of my voice, I think, for the last couple of years here.
Well, I'm actually pretty jealous of you. You were able to kind of pick it up and walk away. And I don't quite know how you managed to do that. You're posting tweets about the whiskey you're drinking, all the stuff you're doing with your free time. I need you to teach me, because any way where I can get a facilitated escape from Brad and Evan seems like it's way better for my mental health.
That's really the key, is you just have to sort of set that aside and say, I'm going to have some different priorities. And just to clear everything up, I love Max, and Max is absolutely one of my best friends, and it had absolutely nothing to do with that. I think, I'm going to have a baby in 5 months here, a lot of different house projects and things that I've got to get done. And then at work, I think a lot of people know that I'm an intensive care unit pharmacist down here. And, I'm writing a book chapter now for some of the different board certification exams, and just finished another one. So with all of that going on, it was just tough to put in the amount of time necessary to prep a good show. Like you guys, I think for Ryan, you're obviously very aware of this, but, the amount of time it takes to prep a show is extensive. To do it right, to have the information, to know what you're talking about. So I think that's just all the more reason why I had to just step away to make sure that I had the time necessary to do other things. Doesn't mean I'm gone forever. Like I can still pop onto a show like on a night like tonight where I don't have anything going on and I can just hop on. But, sometimes you just need to do it.
Well, it goes without saying that you and Max did a phenomenal show with Wings for Breakfast, and we're all the better for having had you guys do it, and appreciate the friendship. And I've said this multiple times in multiple different venues now. You aren't getting away from us, and this is just the first of many different Kane pulls back into Red Wings podcasting. So appreciate you doing it last minute. Brad, how's your finger, buddy?
It's sore, but it's back together in one piece, so we're doing all right.
Well, for a little bit of background, I just mentioned this earlier. The NHL Draft Lottery, the actual time wasn't announced until less than 20 hours before the draft lottery itself. And the way we determined the time for this live stream is we looked at the previous 4 draft lotteries and the time it started at, and it was consistent. And this was the first year they went an hour sooner. So I moved the time of this live stream, and then I had to move it again because work obligations for Brad. And then an hour and a half ago, he calls me and says, "Don't get mad," and holds up his bloodied finger that he sliced open at work.
Gotta love it.
Oh, and man. I made it only 10 minutes late.
Yeah, I'm actually extremely impressed.
I do for this goddamn team, this goddamn podcast, this goddamn league. I haven't even had dinner. It's been a shitty day. I'm cranky. I'm ready for more bad fucking news. You
are already in the draft lottery mindset. I will say, though, I genuinely believe it when I say that you brought good luck from the hockey gods today with your sacrifice to take the less effective painkiller to go faster. I just think you picked the wrong year to do it. 2022 or 2023 would have been way better to do this, buddy.
Yeah, honestly. That being said, if we win, I will absolutely lop half a finger off next year for right or bedard.
I think you're gonna have to do more than that.
So, Brad, I asked Prashanth this question, and he answered with Jesper Wallstedt. No need to jump in here, Prashanth. First and second overall, let's say the Red Wings do win with that just under 16% chance of winning either one of the top 2 picks. Are there guys in your head that are screaming, yeah, they're the top 2, or is it still wide open where you can see it changing between now and draft day?
I mean, the only guy I'm fully certain is a top 3 on my board, and it's a boring answer, is Owen Power. Whether or not he's number 1, I don't know, because, it's the whole floor versus ceiling debate, which could get interesting, because beyond Power, I could make a very good case for Eklund, Beniers, Johnson, maybe even Brandt Clark, maybe even Luke Hughes, Genther. You can make a case for all of them. But yeah, just what Owen Power's toolkit is just so intriguing. And his stats, I think Pronman posted an article today that his stats line up pretty favorably with the Charlie McAvoy, Noah Hannafin, Quinn Hughes, other defensemen who were drafted out of the NCAA. And they didn't have the defensive acumen that he does. So, Power's the easy answer, but yeah, there's literally 6 or 7 other guys you can make a case for.
Yeah, that's my overall. That's what's bringing the overall calm to me, because if the Red Wings do pick first or second, obviously, like, putting it out there, it is better. It is better to have the choice. It's not like, you're guaranteed to get the best player at 7th or 8th overall. It is absolutely better to have the choice, and every day of scouting and research and what have you is valuable for these amateur draft teams. But if they do move down to 7th or 8th or even stay at 6, I just, like, you're not going to do poorly by adding a Luke Hughes, by adding possibly a Beniers. Even if you're someone who's not into the idea of drafting Jesper Wallstedt, the Red Wings have an opportunity here to add someone who's going to fill a need. And that's why it's muddy enough. The waters are muddy enough where the range really isn't that distinct. It kind of is what it is. I'm just saving all my energy to be pissed off next year. That's what it is.
Well, this might be the draft where it is so evenly distributed amongst the top prospects that you can go based on position of need. So that's why I think a lot of Red Wings fans in particular lean towards Power and Beniers, because lefty and center are the 2 biggest glaring weaknesses out of everybody who's available. Obviously Hughes and Edvinsson meet that requirement too. I'm just not as high on them as I am the other 2 defensemen. And Clark's a righty. So it is what it is. I mean, would I be upset if the Red Wings took a swing at a guy that I like? For me, Eklund and Johnson probably have the highest ceilings of anybody in this draft, but are by no means guarantees to get there, or even 75% of the way there. So again, there's going to be that whole debate. But then again, the interesting thing with Power is his tools kit allows him to have a very high ceiling despite being a quote unquote safer pick.
Yeah. We have some questions coming through in the chat here. We will be taking them eventually. We are, according to my screen here, 13 minutes away from the draft lottery. We have quite a few of you in this live stream, so thank you all for joining so much. 750, wow. If you guys haven't and you're up for it, hit the like button. It really helps. And if you're up for subscribing to the YouTube channel, that helps too. If you do it, I will either be mean or nice to Brad, whichever you prefer. And be especially nice to Prashanth. So we have Brad, our giveaway actually is, I had people guess what Evan's score would be on the front 9 that he's playing today in his tournament. And that'll be a couple shirts. What do you think we should do for another giveaway?
I mean, the easy question here relative to what we're doing is guess the 2 teams that win the lottery.
Oh, that's actually good.
I mean, it's right there, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. I just saw a chat comment here. I want to read out. It's from Fat Boy on Computer. It said, chat moving so fast, no one's going to see that I love Ryan Hanna. Thank you, Fat Boy, for that. Also, shout out to Arjun Shankar and his mom who's watching today. Arjun Shankar's mom, Mrs. Shankar, thank you for raising a fine young gentleman with absolutely wild, wild hair.
Does that mean I have to behave?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Brad, anytime you call me, anytime you call me 2 hours ago and say, don't be mad, you absolutely need to behave for the following 3 hours.
Listen, Ryan, I think between the 2 of us, you're having a better day than me.
Yeah, that's fair. At least it's you this time and not Mika.
Yeah, honestly. Like, this is the second needle I've had to get in 2 weeks. Go me.
Oh, man.
And I text Ryan and Evan the backstory about when they actually went to do the stitches. And without getting into the details, just know I did make a sacrifice for the sake of this stream. So just know that my dedication to you guys is there, and I hate every one of you all the same.
Again, those lottery odds that you see on the screen there right under my picture, those are the Red Wings lottery odds adjusted for Arizona. So Arizona, as you may know, has forfeited their first-round pick because they're cheaters. Are you laughing at something in the chat? Oh.
Yeah, Scott Martin's comment there.
Yeah, I just saw that. Arizona forfeited their first round pick, so they are technically in the draw, but if their lottery ball gets drawn, it gets thrown back into the pile and they re-pull until pick someone who didn't cheat in terms of scouting prospects. So the adjusted lottery odds are a little bit higher for everyone. For example, Buffalo's true odds at number 1 overall are 17.1 instead of the 16 point whatever it was supposed to be. Oh, Seattle, New York. I would love to see Seattle win it. I think that would be hysterical. I think it would be really cool to see the continued success, like overarching success of expansion teams in this modern era of the NHL.
If Detroit doesn't win, I want maximum chaos. I want to see, again, I prefer the new draft lottery system to the old one, but I still think it's very stupid. I want maximum chaos if it doesn't go Detroit's way. So I'm literally hoping for the Rangers to get first overall, if not Detroit. The hockey Twitter would melt, and I'm here for it.
You say that, but you're the one half the time melting on hockey Twitter.
Oh, I will be amongst the noise. Like, listen, when we do the podcast, I try to base my analysis out of as much, taking the emotion out of it as much as possible. Tonight, all bets are off. This is just emotion. It's a lottery. There's no analysis to be had here. I can get as rationally angry as I want.
The lottery rules that Brad mentioned there are 3 changes that were made to the draft lottery, but only one of them applies this year. And that one specifically is that instead of there being 3 draws for the top 3 picks, there's only 2 draws for the top 2 picks. The other 2 changes are that you cannot win the draft lottery more than twice in a 5-year period. So if the Red Wings win this year, they can still win the next 2 years and be fine. And then the other change is that you can't move up more than 10 picks. So if you're a fringe playoff team and you move up and you win the draft lottery, so to speak, you only move up 10 picks. And I believe that doesn't start this year either. Yeah,
no,
perfect.
It's just the 2 slots. So because there was a lot of confusion on Twitter, because obviously for those who saw my Twitter feed this morning where I was just trying to get as many people as angry as I was about the draft lottery in general. I mentioned something like Detroit's going to win the draft lottery this year and then never again, because that's exactly how it would go. And someone's like, well, no, the maximum 2 wins in 5 years doesn't kick in until next year. And let me clarify, I know it's the universe that will prevent us from winning again after this year. We will win, and then we will not get Wright or Bedard, and then we will piss and moan about the draft lottery, and then everyone will be able to go, no, but you won one. And thus we can't even legitimately complain, but we still missed out on all the superstars. Now, that being said, I will argue this draft is still being sold a little shorter than it should be. I understand it doesn't have the superstar at the front like most drafts do. This is still important to get a top 2 pick versus picking 7th or 8th. You get choice of position and you get a little more certainty. Do I think there's a world where, if Brant Clark, Luke Hughes, or, Kent Johnson's picked 7th overall, that they could be better than, Owen Power or William Eklund if they get picked 1st overall? Yeah, it could happen. Is it likely? No. That's why you still want the 1st or 2nd overall pick.
Do you either of you think, let's say we are taking Power and Beniers here as the arbitrary top 2, do either of you think that either one of those guys has a chance to be a true, like, I don't want to say game-breaking like Crosby, but just the next tier below level player in terms of their absolute ceiling? And I'm not saying it's likely, but is there a realm of possibility where at their respective positions they could be those players for the Red Wings? Like, think Quinn Hughes almost and what he's been for the Canucks.
I mean, I wouldn't rule it out. I think when you're evaluating these draft prospects, sort of what you want to do is have a range of outcomes. So all the way from being that elite player that you're talking about all the way down to maybe being a bust and not even making the NHL. You sort of just want to assign a probability of what's the likelihood of them being there. And I can't say that it's 0 for either of those guys being in that elite bucket. I will say, in my opinion, neither one of them are really high up there. And if I had to pick one guy who maybe had the highest probability of being elite, I'd probably pick William Eklund, but that's just in that one bucket. As opposed to all of the rest of the buckets there. And so, at the end of the day, you can't say it's impossible, but I don't think it's very likely that either one ends up in that like really elite bucket that you're talking about.
I think that there's possibilities here. Again, like Prashant said, none of them extremely likely. It depends on how you want to define impact in the game. Do I think Owen Power is going to be Victor Hedman? No, of course not. But do I think he could have the impact of, a Jared Spurgeon or, a legit number one defenseman on a good team? Yeah, I could see that outcome happening. He has the tools. He's got it there. I think Power's more likely than Beniers. I think actually Eklund and Johnson are the most likely out of any of the forwards in this draft, with Beniers being not too far behind. But yeah, I wouldn't call any of them very likely.
I saw a take today, and I'm really sorry to the scout who said this, because I can't remember who it is. I'll look it up later. But they said that they believe Jesper Wallstedt could play in the NHL as soon as next year if the team who drafted him wanted him to. Which, honestly, if I'm Steve Yzerman, I don't want that to happen, because I want to be as far away from Wallstedt's second contract if I'm drafting him as possible, because that's going to be pricey. And Brad, you and I had it out about that last episode. But that is an impressive thought, because typically you think about goalies not like forwards, almost like defensemen, maybe even more so on that scale, where they need quite a bit of time to not only mature and develop, but be NHL ready.
Well, I think that speaks more to how polished Wallstedt is as a prospect, but polished doesn't necessarily equate ultimate upside. Will Wallstedt come in a year or two and challenge for the Calder? Probably not. I don't think his game's there yet. I think it could be there. I think he could be a Vezina candidate. I don't know. It's, again, and since we're on the topic, I want to clarify something, because I think there was a little confusion from the last episode. I'm not saying there is not a path to Wallstedt being a good pick for Detroit if we're picking, 6th, 7th, or 8th. If we get 1 or 2 and you say pick Wallstedt, you're high on drugs. But it would require literally pitch perfect timing from Steve Yzerman in terms to the contract structure. You ride out his ELC, that's great. You hopefully have a scenario where you can burn the first year of his ELC like the Canucks did with Hughes and the Avs did with Makar, without actually him playing much of that year. I think actually Florida did it with Knight this year. I could be wrong. And then you get 2 years out of them, and then you bet on the upside before he gets there, where you give him a Connor Hellebuck, John Gibson type contract where you get, 5, 6, 7 years out of him at a 6-7 mil cap hit, and he is as good as advertised. Then everybody's happy. That is on the table, but that is extremely unlikely. And that is also not factoring in, he's a goddamn goalie. They're voodoo. No goalie is ever guaranteed, and far more likely to bust than a forward or a defenseman. So just want to reiterate that. So that I'm not saying if the Red Wings draft Wallstedt, it's over, I'm done, we're all angry, it's doom and gloom. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying I wouldn't be the one to take that risk.
He screamed into the mic.
So, I think Brad, I'll actually be the one that, oddly enough, is going to push back a little bit on this here, because I think a lot of what I've sort of laid out in terms of like my philosophy, which sounds like very similar to yours about drafting goaltenders, is honestly based on historical evaluation of goaltenders. And historically speaking, I think one thing that we've seen teams not do well is they don't actually advance their goaltenders maybe as early as they could. Is that a fault of the goaltender themselves and they actually need more development time? Or is that simply because when you're a goaltender, there's really only one starting job on a single team versus 12 forward positions, 6 defensive positions, and that potentially those goalies are actually being held back simply because they're not getting as much playing time, and then you see the smaller sample so you don't advance them as quickly? Is that really the reason why a goalie actually takes a little bit longer? And if someone is saying that Wallstedt could play in the NHL the next season, maybe you do something similar to what the Panthers did with, Spencer Knight, where you bring him in, you let him get a handful of games, don't necessarily hand him the starting role. And if you do that, potentially you can keep that second contract down by not actually allowing him to play himself into a bigger deal. And so I think there is a way to do it. But I think if you're going to make that goalie pick, then treat the goalie like the same way you treat the forward, the defenseman. Don't hold them back because you're not seeing the sample size. We're talking about Askarov had a .951 save percentage in the KHL last year. Are you telling me he's not ready to be in the NHL? The KHL is arguably the best league in the world. That's not the NHL. And so if you're not actually getting that player there, then I think you're actually wasting some of the potential and ability of that goalie. And so part of what my kind of rant against the goalie's been is you don't actually get the value from the goalie you draft in the first round if you sort of drag your feet in bringing them to the NHL. Like Jonathan Burney is a first round pick. Jonathan Burney was 11th overall. He played 45 games for the LA Kings before he moved on from there. You look at Jack Campbell, played 1 game for Dallas. He's a first round pick. If you do that, then yeah, you're wasting that pick. So I think really if you're going to go all out and draft a goalie, bring him to the NHL the same way you would advance, a forward or defenseman picked in that position, and don't really worry about the sample size as much.
I saw a couple comments in the chat like, Ryan, what are you doing? You're going to give Brad and Prashant an aneurysm with all the goalie talk. It's not even draft day. As I'm speaking, the NHL Draft Lottery intro is happening on the screen in front of me. It's the NHL, so there's no way of predicting whether this is going to happen within the next 2 minutes or the next 20 minutes. So obviously we're going to be here with you as that progresses. Just a quick note here about that. If you were ahead of this stream, which does sometimes happen, it's kind of a crapshoot every year. Just for the sake of the chat, try not to spoil it in there for people who are getting their reactions from us or maybe who are a little bit behind. Or do, I don't know. I'm not the cops. That's Brad. A question I saw, I believe, from Justin Coleman was, why did Aatu Räty drop so far when he was ranked so highly prior to this year?
Who was it? Scott Wheeler put out a really interesting article about him today that I was reading through about kind of what triggered his regression. And without getting in the details of that, he did not progress as everybody had expected. I think it was his U17 year. He absolutely tore apart the Finnish junior leagues and everybody was all excited. And then he went into his U18 year and didn't really live up to expectations. And then this year had another subpar year based on the expectations everybody had for him. He still had a good year for a draft prospect. But yeah, he didn't progress the way everybody thought he would from when he was torching those junior leagues.
So as they release the draft order, what's typically happened is they have those big cards with the teams, the logos, and they go in reverse order. Pretty much, if you're rooting for the Red Wings to move up this season, which I presume most people here are, unless you're of the mind like Brad, where you need to preserve that cosmic energy and save it for next year. What you want to see when you get to picks 8, 7, and 6 is anybody but Detroit. And also what you want to see is prior to picks 8, 7, and 6 for things to go in the order that they should, so to speak. So you want to see Rangers, Stars, Flyers, Flames, Blackhawks, Senators, Canucks, Kings, and then Sharks. And then if you start to see things like Columbus before Detroit and then New Jersey before Detroit, you'll know Detroit has won one of those top 2 picks. Again, as you can see on the screen below me, it is a below 16% chance that they win either one of those top 2 picks. The Wings had about that chance of winning the number 1 overall pick alone last year. So very much the expectation here is that the Red Wings are going to be picking in the 6 to 8 realm.
Statistically, most likely pick for the Red Wings is 7th. So keep that. For me, anything above 7's a win. 7's expectations, 8 we riot.
So I asked you guys about picks 1 to 2. Pick 6 to 8. Is there anyone in your mind who isn't traditionally considered among those top 8 players that you would start to consider, or maybe one of the less popular players that you think the Red Wings should absolutely jump at if they're available in one of those picks?
I would have said McTavish and Lucelle, but they're in more top 10 rankings than not now at this point. There's nobody that I've really seen yet that I would bump from like the mid-teens into the top 10. So I can't say I have anybody. The one guy that I have much higher on my rankings than most other rankings I've seen out there is Logan Stankoven, but I don't have him high enough to take him in the top 10, at least not where the Red Wings are picking yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, McTavish would be the guy. But, like you said, Brad, after the U18s, I think a lot of people have started to move him up. He had a really solid U18 performance. And so he's sort of a guy that I think a lot of people are basically penciling in as maybe number 8 or the guy that's going to go right after those consensus, 7 players there. I think other guys that you can think about, Fabian Lysell has a lot of talent. Did not have a great season in the SHL, but he has a lot of the tools that you're potentially looking for there. Francesco Pinelli, I think, is another guy where I don't really like the pace he plays with, but again, another guy that has some tools there that you could work with. But really, like you said, Brad, I don't know that anyone outside of McTavish is a guy that I would jump on in the 6 to 8 range.
And as we get prepped for this to start, I'm going to just do one more very selfish call out here. If you guys haven't already, give this video a like. And if you're up for it, subscribe to the channel on YouTube. It certainly helps us a lot. And Prashant said it would personally make his night. So we have to do what makes Prashant happy. Luke Hughes is someone who's... I don't know if I'm being crazy for saying this, but I don't exactly believe in like hockey pedigree to the degree where, Luke Hughes is absolutely going to be a star like Quinn is. But are you guys not a little bit horrified of maybe passing on Hughes and him turning into yet another phenom? Because I'm not sure I could handle that without burying my head in the sand after.
I don't think Luke's at the tier of his brothers. I think it's a real long shot that he ends up there. He doesn't have the offense that Quinn does. He's as good a skater, maybe not laterally, but north-south. He's an extremely strong skater. I don't know what's up with it. I've heard from a few people now that there's a lot of character issues with Luke Hughes, but I have not seen enough reports to really put much meat into that. But something to keep in the back of your mind if it does start to become more prevalent. But as a hockey player, I like him. I love his skating. I love his transition game. I think he's got better offense than he gets credit to, but I don't really think there's a whole lot that he does at an elite level that's going to put him in the tier of a Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, I'll go as far as to echo what you said, Brad, about the character issues. I have actually heard a fair bit of that as well. There's certainly things you like about his game. He's obviously probably the best skater on the defensive side in the draft. He can do a lot of things. I am somewhat nervous about how he recovers from this lacerated tendon in his foot that he's had to have surgically repaired, and if that has any sort of long-term impact on his skating. So I think that is certainly something to think about. He's defensively nowhere near as polished as Brant Clark or Owen Power in that regard. And so for me, I have both of those guys ahead of him, and just from that aspect alone. But you're right. I mean, it's tough to pass on a guy that can skate like him and can generate the offense and can jump into transition. But to me, I think there's enough red flags where I'm not maybe looking at him in my top 6.
A comment I saw in the chat was about if we pick 8th, we riot. I have to say, I really mean it when I say I don't particularly care passionately about where the Red Wings pick. But if the first time the Red Wings hit a 10 in 100 or a 1 in 10 odds of nailing a specific pick, and it's pick 8th instead of 1st or 2nd in this year or previous years, I will be extremely pissed off. If these walls were drywall and not plaster, I'd be punching through them.
If we pick 8th, my anger won't be from whoever we're actually going to get in the draft, because like we've mentioned 1,000 times, the gap between 1 and 9 to 10 in this draft isn't extreme. It's the principle of it. I can't do it again.
Yeah,
that's all.
You can't drop 2 spots again. Come on now, we can't do this again.
Drafting one spot is expected, but
there's no way. But again, maximum chaos. If we're dropping 2 spots, let it be the Rangers in Dallas. Let this just look as ridiculous as possible.
No, I'm all in on the Kraken, man. I want people to be pissed about an expansion team like with Vegas. And I want teams to also be desperate and do stupid things with the Kraken at the expansion draft, but that's a conversation for a different day. And as Steve Yzerman flashes on the screen, they had a graphic showing that the Red Wings have the most draft picks this year with 12, and I think I've had the most picks over the past however many year or among that. So Red Wings focus, obviously, for all the wrong reasons. This is all virtual. I do miss when they had like 12 hockey guys sitting on like fold-out chairs, shoulder to shoulder, just in a room that was sequestered. That was extremely funny. Draper, was it Draper that was the representative in? It was one of the big year, not the Matthews year. It was the McDavid year, right?
That's what 2015. I don't know if
they wouldn't have been in that.
Actually, he wouldn't have. Yeah, they wouldn't have been in that lottery. So
one of the next ones.
Yeah, I think he was a representative the year for Cider. Last year I think he was there.
That's right. Yeah, that was the year where he was in. Steve Yzerman actually hasn't been to one of the in-person ones, so that tracks. This looks like a congressional hearing. It's like one of those live stream courtrooms that have been popping up during the pandemic.
We're just gonna see like this tiny jail cell pop up with John Chayka sitting in it soon.
Gary Bettman with a cat filter on his face. I promise I'm not a cat. I'm ready to proceed with this draft lottery. So
no, wouldn't that have to be Chayka? No, you're right. It would be Bettman in this scenario.
Honestly, Brad, I didn't put too much thought into this stupid analogy. You know how I roll. Oh, it was the Dahlin year. Yeah, thank you, Matthew. I think you're right. That was the Dahlin year. All right. It's always unpredictable as to how much pomp and circumstance the NHL puts before this. Ron Francis is talking now. I'm surprised there wasn't a bigger push for them to bring in Brind'Amour. And actually, with you in Carolina, Prashanth, maybe you have a better pulse on this. I'm actually shocked that Brind'Amour is so determined to stay in Carolina. Well, maybe shocked isn't the right word, but he's not going to be making a killing there. Yeah, but he's going to be making well under market as a coach.
Now, but if your team finishes, top 4 or 5 in the standings every year for 4 or 5 years, I think your next contract's going to look pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, he's just been a fixture of the franchise. It's like, he was there for their Stanley Cup team in 05-06. He's got his number in the rafters. Like he's a fixture there, and the guys want to play for him. Dundon, as the owner, has publicly said he will pay whatever necessary to keep him. So for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. And I never really bought into that he was ever going to leave Carolina, because he's just he sort of bleeds the Hurricanes blood. Like he's really just a Carolina Hurricanes guy through and through.
That video of him giving the speech after the series win, where he had his dad on the phone, I was ready to run through a wall in my house for Rod Brind'Amour.
I mean, just go through and watch all of his post-game speeches. I mean, the Hurricanes will usually post a lot of them. You literally want to get up and run straight through the wall for him. And that's why, I mean, Vincent Trocheck said that. Like, he comes down from Florida and is like, I would run through a wall for this guy. So definitely a guy you want to play for.
They have shown the dramatic walk-up with all of the cards, so I can imagine we're going to start to see these picks be turned over soon. I told myself I wouldn't be nervous for this, but my heart's already beating.
I can't be nervous for something that I already know is going to disappoint me.
You woke up with so much anger, Brad. I was like, how is this man so belligerent before 8 a.m.?
What was my what was my first tweet of the day? It's draft lottery day, so I woke up today and automatically chose violence. like my expectations of this are so low that if we win 1 or 2, I won't believe it until the actual draft.
So I believe
I've been hurt too many times before, Ryan.
I believe the cards are going to start being turned over soon, and they are starting with pick 15. So we'll update you guys with who gets each pick. Again, try not to spoil it in the chat, and as you're waiting, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. So with pick 15.
Yay, the Rangers.
Oh, you're ahead of me, Brad.
Am I? Oh, I was behind you. Last year, okay. I'll try and be a stone faced and then react when you guys do.
Okay, pick 15 is the Rangers, so they did not get yet another lottery win. The hockey gods have stopped playing their sick game, which is appreciated. Pick 14. We want to see Dallas here.
Seeing Dallas.
That's Dallas. So the Stars have not jumped up. That's more good news for Detroit. The next pick that we want to see on the board is the Philadelphia Flyers at 13. Oh, man. I have my camera set up right in front of where he's flipping the cards over. Pick 13 is the Flyers. So that is, again, another good sign for Detroit. None of the low probability bottom three.
Have not gone full silly season yet.
Next up, we want to see the Flames at 12. We want to see the Flames. If it's Chicago, that means the Flames moved up. And my screen froze.
I got the Flames.
Flames is up.
Perfect.
Yep, Flames is 12.
Awesome.
They're a team that's about to start a rebuild. They could have used that.
So next up, we want to see 11, the Chicago Blackhawks. If it's Ottawa, that means Chicago got a nice thing.
Spoiling this one, thank God.
That's good.
All right.
Not Chicago. It's already a better than expected night.
So if we make it all the way to LA, that means Detroit can't move down to 8th if my math is correct. So we want to see Ottawa next, not Vancouver, at pick 10.
Ottawa got Stützle.
Ottawa.
They did not need this.
Yeah, they got Stützle last year. They don't need more. I think Ottawa's going to be surprising next year. So next up, we want to see Vancouver. If it's LA, that is no bueno. Vancouver, please, for pick 9. Let's go.
There we go. There's Vancouver.
Amazing. So that means Detroit can't be 8th. So, well.
Yeah, no, we could. LA and San Jose are still
Yeah,
there.
that's right. We need to see LA.
Yep. All right. I got 8 as LA.
Awesome.
Oh, Prashant has moved ahead of my feed.
Yeah, 8 is the LA Kings.
Can't pick worse than 7th.
Can't be worse than 7th, which is good news. So we want
already better than expected. I'm happy.
Now we would love to see San Jose.
And there is San Jose on the screen.
Oh, wow.
Uh-oh.
Oh, wow.
What are we seeing at 6?
If this isn't Detroit at 6, that means
we didn't
move
down. It's a win. All right, so Prashant has the earliest feed, so we'll have to go on his reaction here.
Prashant, you're dictating our fate.
6 is Detroit. 6 is Detroit.
God damn it. Whatever.
Hey,
whatever.
I mean, it's still a win, right?
Because for the first time in a draft lottery, we did not go backwards.
That's progression. That means next year they might move up. Yeah. I'll take that.
All right, I want Columbus and Seattle now.
Oh, I would love that.
I've got 5 as Columbus.
Oh, sure. Now the actual worst teams win the draft lottery when we're not all the way up there.
They literally they worsen the lottery odds, and the top teams actually do better. I mean, what
this
the
is
hell?
So stupid.
This is the stupidest thing.
I hate this league so much. I hate this lottery so much.
Well, we knew it was coming.
This is stupid.
New Jersey didn't win it. I thought for sure that was coming with.
Yeah, I honestly thought so too. So the Red Wings are drafting 6
overall.
The
top 3.
The top 3 are the top 3. They are who we thought they were.
How does Buffalo stay up there without Taylor Hall, though? I thought that was against the rules.
I mean, they had part of Taylor Hall, so
the
maybe they end
other
up third.
Yeah. Boston's not in the lottery, and they had Taylor Hall, so Buffalo's got the most Taylor Hall per 60 of any team in this lottery.
That is fair. It's just residual Taylor Hall.
Did they really just cut to commercial?
Oh, my God.
You pieces of shit.
Well, we should have known. All right, the Red Wings are drafting 6th overall. As Prashant and Brad noticed, they didn't move down, which is a stark departure from previous years where they moved down 1 pick once, 2 picks twice, and then last year they moved down 3 picks. So, hey, it is a little bit of improvement. And for those of you who want to save the luck for next year and the year after for Shane Wright, Malty Michkov, Bedard, this plays into that. 6 overall, who do you see as being most likely off the board for the Red Wings where we shouldn't even bank on them being available?
So I think Beniers and Power are the most likely to go high. I think they have because of their positions and what they are the least likely to slide. I think it's wide open beyond that. Legitimately, I think Eklund, Genther will be off the board before Detroit. So then you've got that tier of Edvinsson, Hughes, Johnson, McTavish, Lucelle that the Red Wings will be picking from. So I've got my 4 that I think go. So out of who's left, my preference at that point would be Kent Johnson. But again, there's a million ways you could go. Because again, Luke Hughes and Simon Edvinsson, direct position of need for the Red Wings, which is, worth factoring in here. I have bigger concerns with them than I do with Johnson's game, but, we'll have lots of time to go over the possibility. Because one thing we do need to be appreciative of, the Red Wings picking 6, we didn't fall, and maximum content between now and the draft.
Oh man, it is really, really, really pissing me off that the first time is seemingly in a long time where the bottom 3 stay the bottom 3. It's when Detroit's not in there.
It's just, it's just rigged. It's just rigged. I'm going to say
it. Slava had a comment in the chat, and I think it was a very astute point. Brad didn't sacrifice enough of his finger. You should have gone for the full index, Brad.
I got to save the rest of it for the right lottery, okay?
All right, Brad. You got to sacrifice a thumb. Do you do it for the right lottery?
Oh my God, Prashant, I just saw your tweet. You're right. How did we not call attention to the fact the Red Wings at 6th overall, the meme lives on.
Again.
It's the prophecy. It's
no matter
6th
what.
overall. That's their 3rd 6th overall in 5 years, is it?
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, 3rd 6th overall in 3 years. What am I saying? 2018, 2019, and now 2021. Oh, man.
Hey, to be fair, our last 2 6th overalls worked out pretty all right.
That's true. I was going to say the Red Wings could build a top 6 of 6 overall picks, but we'd have to move someone up to forward. Although that might be a fun experiment just to train. I really, really do hope it's Seattle.
Want out of the teams left, I want Buffalo and Seattle just because I still have all the residual hatred for the Ducks.
Yeah,
they got Zegras
give me Seattle
last year.
1. Give me Seattle at 1. So.
Absolutely, Seattle 1. Fully what I would want here. And then Buffalo, their fan base deserves it, if we're being honest.
I mean, the fan base deserves it, but the organization sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Like you don't trust them to do well with that player. I already want to get Darlene out of there.
Here is number 3.
The Ducks.
Anaheim. Yeah.
Let's go.
We get Buffalo, Seattle, top 2.
Well,
hey, this is working out pretty well for not working out for us.
Let's go Seattle 1 here, just because we don't want the first
Seattle
overall
1.
in our division. Oh man, that's fantastic.
I mean,
news.
Buffalo has plenty of those, and it hasn't worked out for them. So,
and they're about to lose
Buffalo
Jack
1 overall. Here we go.
It's Buffalo.
Wow, the Taylor Hall effect lives on. 2nd overall in your
Taylor
first
Hall
season.
per 60.
Yeah. 2nd overall in your first season's not bad though. That's good. That's a good haul for Seattle. I'm happy for them.
I'm very happy for them. I don't think Buffalo deserved it, but it's fine. The fan base deserves it. They really do deserve nice things, but not the organization.
Namita deserves an opportunity to draft 2nd overall. I'm very happy for her.
I'm very much excited for her to take Jesper Wallstedt and then make me reconsider everything I've ever worked on. Just for shits and giggles.
Drag every model you have to the recycle bin. See you later.
And basically, that's literally what I would do. I'll just throw the whole computer away at that point. I'd be done.
So drafting ahead of Detroit are Buffalo, Seattle, Anaheim, New Jersey, and Columbus in that order. That's the top 5 before the Red Wings at 6 overall. Again, this was the first time that the Red Wings didn't move down in the draft lottery, which was kind of a surprise. The most likely pick was the 7th overall pick. I think it was like a 32% chance of picking 6th overall. So nice for Detroit to not move down even further. Perfectly happy with 6th. And like Brad mentioned, you just know that means the Wallstedt conversation is going to keep happening. That is not going away anytime soon. If they went top 2, I could see it fizzling out, because even if you are a Wallstedt stan, maybe not top 2, but at 6, it's going to be there. So Brad, gear up, and maybe you have to start game planning with Prashanth, because I'm probably going to come at you with so much devil's advocate you're going to want to stab me.
Who says I just won't stab you preemptively?
That's fair. We have like 2 years of recording remotely, having not been in the same room together. Who's to say we didn't build up enough contempt in that time where it's just an immediate murder the moment we're in the studio again?
Like, I have Googled several times how to stab somebody through a computer. So, once the technology comes far enough, you're screwed.
So I was looking at something in the chat and not really listening to you, and I heard that come through. In the chat, put together who you would want, who's probably going to be there at 6. So leave out Power, leave out Beniers. Who would you want to take at 6 overall? And again, to the 1,250 of you or so who are in here, thank you so much for tuning in. And again, going to be annoying. If you can, like this video, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you guys' support so much. And again, another call out, Prashanth. First time on the live stream for a draft lottery, and he was on here. He was ready to crash the comments, but he came on camera with like 30 minutes to spare before. So Prashanth, thanks again.
You got it.
Trading up, I'm going to put that out there, is kind of out of the question this year. Yeah, like there's no point in moving the assets for that.
Unless they ask. Yeah, no way. This is a draft, honestly, where trading back's a better consideration.
How far back would you trade comfortably?
2 to 3 spots.
Really?
My preference with the 6th overall pick, everything considered, would be to stand pat. It would have to be a pretty substantial offer, like a second first round pick, like another late first round pick, to go back past pick 8 for me. So I would definitely err on the side of just stay put. I think the second Washington's first round pick's a good trade back candidate. Mm-hmm. So that would be ideal. But I mean, the Red Wings already have 12 picks this draft. I mean, shoot your shot. That's going to be my opinion going into the draft, truthfully. If you can move up, if there's, sorry, go ahead, Prashanth.
I was just going to say it's tough because I think in making the decision to trade back, it really depends on how the draft plays out. Like preemptively, exactly. I can say, maybe there's a couple of spots that I'd be willing to move back because maybe there's 9 or 10 guys in the top group of players. And if I'm getting any one of those, I'm happy. But I think in a year like this, there's kind of a group of maybe 6 players or 7 players that are really that top tier. Or I should say maybe they've separated themselves a little bit more than the other guys. And then there's sort of that next bucket, which seems very, very big. And so I think you want to sort of make sure that as the picks are being made, you aren't trading back farther than you're going to be able to comfortably say you can get, one of those guys. Because now if you all of a sudden remove yourself from that and you're a team like Detroit that really does need elite talent, you may, the trading back may not actually get you the value that you want. So I think if you see a run where, Sebastian Casa is going before 6, then maybe that's sort of signaling to you that people are going to be doing wild and crazy things, and you could potentially move back a little bit.
Yeah, we'll call it the Barrett Hayton effect. If something like that happens in this draft, just completely out of left field. But in a realistic scenario for me, obviously going on my own draft board, if Power Beniers go 1-2 like we expect, and then let's say the next 3 is Brant Clark, Luke Hughes, and Simon Edvinsson. Well, if you're sitting there with Kent Johnson and William Eklund and
Dylan Genther
and Dylan Genther on the board, if I was Yzerman, I couldn't pick up the phone fast enough because I'd be very happy moving back to 8, maybe even 9, and seeing, taking a second round pick out of it because, you're going to be getting pretty equal value there. So the board's going to depend. But then again, you could also go in the opposite direction where something really fucking crazy happens and Owen Power falls to 4. And, if the cost is like your first, second round pick to move up 2 spots, I don't think it would come that cheap. But if it is, you'd be nuts not to do it.
There are 2 things that I think are particularly unlikely, but if Yzerman can pull them off, I think it would be kind of a wild but beneficial move. The first is obviously sign Taylor Hall, because this is beyond a joke at this point. The man has a profound effect. If he is on your team on opening day in October or whenever the league starts, you are winning the following draft lottery. Plain and simple. It's a scientific fact at this point. Prashant proved it with his models. No need to source that. Second, if you can get an additional 2022 or 2023 first round draft pick, and the NHL is not fun, it's not the NBA, those kinds of picks don't move around very easily, I would very much be okay with moving back into the late teens or even early 20s, take out the value from this year, but get a potential bonus shot next year. And you'd have to be kind of particular, and this is why I don't think it'll happen. There's just too many conditions. But let's say you can trick Mark Bergevin into giving you next year's or 2023's first round pick. The guy's riding a high right now. It's a wild tinfoil hat notion, but that would be like the ultimate reason to kind of trade away this pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were able to trade away, now this was actually a great question. Max and I got asked this. Would you trade the 2021 first this year, now knowing that it's a 6th overall pick, for an additional lottery pick in 22 or 23? I think it's tough. I mean, at 6th overall now, knowing that that's where it's going to be, you're probably still going to get a pretty solid player. But if you're moving back to 22 or 23 and you add another lottery ball, and potentially it is, you capitalize on Montreal getting too high on their horses. You capitalize on, Arizona having no idea what they're trying to do. You capitalize on Philadelphia thinking that they're still good and they get really, really bad. Or you take advantage of Vancouver as they try to salvage their cap this year to sign Pettersson and Hughes, and ultimately that doesn't make them a better team. Potentially you do have a high lottery pick in those scenarios. Now, I think if I'm Detroit, I still probably wouldn't make the deal, thinking about the math a little bit more, but giving yourself 2 opportunities at Shane Wright, Connor Bedard, Mitch Koff, guys like that. I mean, I think you certainly want to be in the top 3 in either of those years, preferably both.
Yeah, I would consider it for sure, but I would be really picky with the team. And I'm absolutely with Prashant on the 3 teams you mentioned, Vancouver, Philly, Montreal, that I think all 3 of those teams think they're a lot better than they are, and there is a good chance for regression there. But I'm not certain enough on any of those 3 teams to think that they're going to fall far enough that it would be worth giving up the 6th overall pick. Now, obviously any team can win the lottery, and if they're the 10th worst team in the league, they could in theory pick for 1st overall, but I don't love those odds enough to move on from the 6th overall pick this year, knowing that the Red Wings are guaranteed to have one of Power, Beniers, Clark, Johnson, Genther, or Eklund sitting there.
Yeah, and the reality is also like I can dream and put on my tinfoil hat as much as I want, but teams across the league, no matter where they're picking, know how difficult this year's draft is going to be, and they're not going to be keen on mortgaging futures just to move up in a draft that is pretty widely perceived as weaker. So fun to think about, but probably won't be anything more than a thought experiment. All right, any closing notes on this draft lottery or what we can look forward to in anticipation of the draft with the Red Wings and Steve Yzerman and Chris Draper and his team picking 6th overall before we wrap up this stream, guys?
Remember the Mo Sider pick. Anything is possible. Like for us as a podcast, we are obviously going to likely hyper focus on the top 10 picks. But we and everybody in the scouting world has been preaching this draft is wide open. And because of the pandemic, the nature of this draft, even before the pandemic, or this draft class, I should say, before the pandemic, we've said this draft has the potential to be silly season. The rankings are nowhere near consensus. And there's so many variables with players specifically in North America who maybe didn't get to play a full season. And obviously Yzerman went way off the board with the Sider pick already. Do not get married to anybody in the top 10. Do not get hyper-focused on a prospect, even though we as a podcast will very much be hyper-focusing on the top 10 to 12 picks. Understand there is a very real possibility that not just Detroit, but a lot of teams could really surprise at any point in this draft.
Yeah, I think this will be a really weird draft, but I think if you're looking for something to maybe hang your hat on, I think if you look at the last 2 drafts under Yzerman and Draper, They've sort of prioritized a couple of key aspects in the players they select. They're looking for guys who are high hockey IQ players. They're looking for guys that have that compete level, and they're looking for guys that have that skating ability. And so really those are sort of the three things that I think you'll see in whoever they end up picking at 6th overall, come the time of the draft. I think those are the guys that you want to be keeping in the back of your mind and sort of trust the process that there's not been a lot of scouting on a lot of these guys. Some of these seasons have been shut down. The SHL was allowed to finish, but the Swedish junior leagues got paused, I think, around December time. Liga had some issues throughout the season. You haven't really seen the same amount of footage on some of these guys, and particularly not as much in person as they would have preferred to in years past. So I think, just like Brad said, don't get married to anyone, but I think Yzerman and Draper have sort of prioritized those three things in the players that they select, and I would fully expect whoever's there at 6 will be fall right in that sort of category.
All right. So on that note, I'll ask you, Prashanth, if you have it off the top of your head, who are the guys in the quote unquote consensus top 10 that fit what Yzerman looks for? Because obviously I have my list in the back of my head of players I think fit that bill, but who do you think falls into that?
I think for the forwards, it's Beniers and Eklund, I think maybe are the two guys that best represented. Beniers from that compete side. Eklund, good compete, but also a good skater, good Beniers as well. And then obviously Eklund, I think, has a little bit more skill there. Those are the two forwards that I think maybe best fit it. And then Brant Clark, to me, is the defenseman that's maybe the most heady. He doesn't fit the skating aspect, and that's maybe where a guy like Luke Hughes fits in a little bit better. But I think those are potentially the four guys there that I'm most, I think, maybe best fit what Yzerman and Draper have sort of prioritized.
So what I'm going to wrap up here with is just to echo these statements from Brad and Prashanth again is even though we've said a lot about this year's draft maybe not being as apparently top heavy or having that superstar player, it doesn't mean it's not possible, and it doesn't mean that no matter what, Detroit isn't going to get a player that's extremely valuable for their rebuild. Drafting in 6th overall is incredibly valuable in terms of filling that pipeline and restocking for the future. So don't be too down on that. And again, don't get too married to a pick. I've been informed that Steve Yzerman is doing a presser over on the Red Wings YouTube channel, the Word on Woodward. So we're going to wrap this up so everyone can go watch that. We encourage you to tune in there. They do a great show over there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, give a like to this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be recording the Winged Wheel podcast shortly after this, so there is a post-lottery episode coming tonight. Again, we so appreciate everyone who tuned in. Prashanth, thank you again for joining us so last minute, and until next time, guys, cheers.